Thank you for joining me this evening for tonight's Teisho, which will be coming from the Blue Cliff record, or the Hekiganroku, and it is Case 28, What the Holy Ones Have Not Preached. Main subject. Nansen came to see Hyakujo Nihon Osho. Jo said, "Is there any dharma that the Holy Ones have not preached to the people?" Nansen said, "There is." Jo said, "What is the dharma then that has not been preached by the people?" Nansen said, "It is not mind, it is not Buddha, and it is not things." Jo said, "You have preached." Nansen said, "I am like this. How about you?" Jo said, "I am not a man of great wisdom. How can I tell if there is preaching or no preaching?" Nansen said, "I don't follow you." Jo said, "I have talked quite enough for you." Secho's verse. Patriarchs and Buddhas have not preached, yet monks run after preachers. Clear mirror on stand, sharply imaging. Looking southward, see the Great Bear. The shaft hangs down, where do you find it? Saving your nostrils, you have lost your mouth. Really a beautiful koan, and an important koan. It is a dialogue or a manda between two very sharp Zen students. We have Hyakujo Nihon, and we have Nansen, and Hyakujo Akai, which we're more familiar with, or kind of the great Hyakujo, would later replace Hyakujo Nihon Osho. So this is also found in Case 27, very, very similar. And I recommend that if you haven't gotten a journal, please do. Writing down your experiences as you go through these koans is very important, because it's very easy to forget or to lose that connection or that experience as we move through hundreds of koans. So get yourself one, write it down, and some of these are redundant, so it's very helpful too to kind of go in and refresh yourself and have a little deeper insight into the koan itself. So journals are a very good idea. A lot of people tuck them behind their zabuton during session, or will leave them in a lounge of some sort and then quick jot down their experiences. And that's a very important activity. So in the koan, Nansen comes to Hyakujo and says, "Is there any dharma that the holy ones have not preached to the people?" So if we look at all of the disciplines that exist in the world, psychology and philosophy and theology, Zen Buddhism is said to have 84,000 sutras. I mean, that's an awful lot of sutras. Mahayana main text, there are 2,184, it said. And then we have the oral tradition. So there was a lot of sutras that were lost because originally they were passed down orally. It was kind of seen as distasteful to write them down. So they were all orally transmitted. And if we look at, oral traditions, if we look at kind of rough oral traditions, I mean rough human communications, they say that we've been able to communicate in this way 150 to 200,000 years. And when it comes to actually complex language, it's about 50 to 100,000 years. Written about close to 6,000 years. So this is a very awful long time for people to be communicating with different kinds of languages, for something that was missed. So he's asking, out of all of these, hundreds of thousands of years of communication, Is there anything that has not been communicated or taught about the essence or the first principle of Zen? So this is a lot to take in, the question that is being asked. Out of all of the teachers, out of all of the religious traditions that spring forth from a common well, after all the civilizations that have existed and perished before us, out of all of our great matriarchs and patriarchs, is there something that has not been taught? It's a very, very deep question. But Nansen says, there is, and the battle begins. Right? There is. And then Joe says, well, of course, what is it? It's the next logical question to it. Well, what is it then? And he says, no mind, no Buddha, no things. So he's covering all of the very common markers or gates of Buddhism. He says, not mind. So a lot of times in Zen Buddhism we talk about mind, all is mind. We talk about, mind being a reflective process, a very communal process as well. Mind is not just brain, but mind is an interactive process with the whole universe. It's this great interconnected communication between all things. So, mind is pretty expansive and intricate and probably take lifetimes to define. But is this great interaction, is this great consciousness, is this, something that has not been taught? Is this it? And Nansen says, no, it's not it. It's not mind. Right? So, well, okay, so it's not mind, this thing that has not been taught. Not mind. But there's so much that has, been taught about it, but yet it's not it. So then he says, not Buddha. Well, Buddha, that's kind of the core gate or the core pointer for the whole tradition. It's not just Shakyamuni Buddha or the founder of what we call modern Buddhism, but Buddha is extremely dynamic and encompassing of all things. It's not, as the next line goes, it's not a thing, and as far as the experience, our internal awakening or our Buddhahood, he's saying that that's not it either. So that great part of ourselves, that loving, that Christ consciousness, that perfect mirror shining, it's not it. It's not it. So then he goes to things. He says, well, it's not things either. So all of the labels that we have and all of the symbols that we use and, the icon of the Buddha and all of the more esoteric aspects of Buddhism, not it either. Nor are they the world of interdependent co-arisal, not it. So what is it? What isn't that? What is it that, has not been taught then? that covers kind of almost all the basis of Buddhism when it comes to learning the fundamentals and the foundation. Many of you have heard the story of my first experience. It was me sitting in the back of my apartment after I had lost everything due to my back failing. I was in my early 30s and had a family, was a newlywed, had a newborn, and we lost everything because I could no longer work. I had pushed myself to the point where I had bent over to get the keys that had fallen on the ground and couldn't get up, and was taken by ambulance to the hospital and was never really the same after that. More than likely stemming from a surfing accident that I had when I was very young that kind of folded me the wrong way on the bottom of the ocean floor in Santa Cruz. So I was sitting out on the back fire escape and, tears kind of streaming down my face and wanting to know so bad, what is the key for this? What is the first principle? What is the way out of this? What is that thing that I am missing? Kind of grasping for it intellectually. And, I had gone through psychology, even before that. I was always interested in what made a human being and the process of how we see reality. So I had funneled through before this psychology. I'd gone to school for it, took probably every psychology class that I could, and ignored a lot of classes that I should have taken in order to complete the degree. But I was so enamored by psychology, I literally sifted through everything. Even on my own beyond college, reading books by Jung and Freud, and studying the bicameral mind, and all of this I had been doing before. So it wasn't something like it was a new question. It was like kind of a accelerando or a kind of a peak of a path that I had been traveling for a while. I had also, before that, looked to various religions. So what is this first essential principle? What is this thing that I'm missing? What is this thing that I feel that I can't define, and I can't find anything in any book anywhere that describes it? So I spent many years doing this, and even when it came to Buddhism, I had for many years done this when it came to sutra. Digging into the sutra and reading them and memorizing them and debating them with other people. And I actually did this for quite a few years. And it was good in a point that I learned an awful lot about the sutra and the history and the context of Buddhism, but yet it didn't matter as much as I learned and as much debates that I won, at least I thought I won, still couldn't find it, still wasn't it. So, you just keep looking and looking and looking and grasping outward and outward and outward. Okay, well, if it's not in here, then it must be in there. If it's not in there, then it must be over there. Over and over and over. Horse with the blinders on, looking for this first principle or this, mysterious truth that I can't find in any book, in any religion, in any philosophy, or from any teacher. I can't find it. Right? So what is it? What is this, principle? So I'm sitting back there and I look across the river, which is called the Jordan Creek, but it's more like a small river, and all of a sudden a lightning bolt strikes across the river. And all of us had seen this. It's, it was dark at night, it was probably Midsummer Eve, and everything was very dark because it was stormy, and all of a sudden lightning strikes and everything is illuminated all at once, just for a very brief moment. It's like day. But for some reason this was very different for me. When this lightning bolt struck, everything changed. I saw everything, and I'm not talking just about things. I mean, I saw everything all at once. They say it's like a dumb man that's had a dream, and it very much was similar to that. I couldn't explain it. I still can't explain it. And I still, haven't read anything that has caught it. But yet was very powerful. It still is very powerful. It still very much is within me. But yet, I cannot describe it to you. All I can do is use words to point. But they will always fall short. And no matter how much I wish I could teach it, and sometimes I find myself teetering on that line of trying to teach, it cannot be taught. It cannot be taught. All we can do is point, and as Ada Roshi would always say, in the readiness of time, then we will see exactly what Nansen is speaking about. One of the other things that we do, and I mentioned it just a moment ago, is we go from teacher to teacher. So we go to one teacher, and then we're looking for this first principle or this great secret or this thing that has not been taught yet. And we're waiting for it, and we're looking for it, and we're grilling the teacher for it, and all of a sudden we decide that they don't have it, so it must be somewhere else. So we go to another teacher. And we do the same thing over again. We grill them, we listen to every word that they say, and we, hold them up on this pedestal as though they have it. It's just a matter of time before they give it to us or we hear it, but it never comes. So we switch again to another teacher. And sometimes switching teachers is essential. Sometimes it's time to learn something different or to see koan work or Zen from a different perspective. But for the most part, switching teachers is nothing more than seeking this first principle in words or for somebody else. A teacher, right? And in the koan it talks about, chasing a teacher and his or her teachings, right? And when we look at teachers and we look at charisma, a lot of times that is attractive when we're on this path, when we're looking for that teacher that has that, that special knowledge that no other teacher has, that teaching that we've seen kind of in mythological stories that is only shared with a few people, and it's hidden from everywhere else, the hidden word, the hidden enlightenment. But no matter how many teachers we go to, and no matter how charismatic and eloquent they are when they offer Dharma talks, still we can't find them. Right? One of my biggest regrets, and thank goodness for regrets, because they make us remember and they make us look into our past, was this journey of going from temple to teacher, looking for this special teaching that was not found in any of the books I read or in any of the sutra. And by doing this, I skipped over an awful lot of good teachers and discounted an awful lot of great teachers. And in other koans, we always hear in the end when one student is dissatisfied with a teacher's explanation and think that they know better, or they have a better insight, or this teacher just doesn't have it. And then they go and they search out far away some other teacher that has, this great prestige and charisma, only to be told that they should go back to their original teacher because, they had it right, and it was us that missed it. So we go traveling all these different places, all these exotic places, looking for this, special teacher that has this teaching. And all the time it was all right in front of us, yet we didn't see it because we didn't understand the nature of our search. And again, some of my greatest teachers were in that period, and I truly wish that I had stayed with them and learned from them a little longer. Not to say that my latter teachers were not as important. They were. My current teachers has been quite wonderful, Genjo Roshi. But the other teachers too added some great depth that I just didn't understand at the time. That took me a while to digest. One is Diane Banaj Roshi. She was a wonderful teacher, but yet again, I thought that there was something to get, that there was some teaching that she didn't have, you know, that maybe a more authentic structure. She had was in an old farmhouse, converted. It was actually beautiful, in a beautiful area, but in my head I was thinking, oh, you know, has to be Japanese architecture, and has to be a Japanese, you know, man with a thick accent, and that this was the authentic Zen, and you know, this, you know, is the only way to understand this first principle, you know, or the essence, you know, of Zen, is to find something authentic, some place that's authentic. And I spend an awful lot of time wasted searching after this, but wasted but not beneficial, because it certainly was beneficial, because it brought me to the period to where I could understand what's being said in this and see what was right in front of me. So, words themselves they're only markers for experience. That's all they are. They're pointers. We can make words eloquent. We can, you know, string them together to create logic. And we can explain an awful lot of things with words, but we cannot explain this, the thing that has not been preached. So no matter how we try, we just can't do it. So we have all of these great markers, even like, you know, well, that's it, right? That's that, you know, the word, that's the experience, that's the thing that, you know, that cannot be explained, that cannot be taught. No, it's not. You know, maybe it's in transmission. Maybe there's something that's transmitted. You know, when a Dharma teacher gets Inca, maybe there's some special knowledge that is conveyed, you know, to the Dharma heir. No. Is it maybe love? I mean, love, we can't explain it. We can point to it and we can feel it, but is it it? No. Maybe compassion for all sentient beings, activism, fighting for those that are being suppressed? No. How about maybe God? What about God? You know, what about the idea of God or the experience of God? No. Just a word. Just a thing. You know, not even Buddha. Buddha's just a marker, just a word. That's all, just a sound. Pointing to something that cannot be explained, but yet surrounds us. Some people say, oh, you're swimming in it. And I always think to myself, no, you are it. You're not swimming in it. You're not separate from it. You are it. You know, but yet we continue to mistake words for the first principle and the core of Buddhism, which just this is never-ending cycle, you know, of grasping over and over and over again, and then coming up empty-handed and getting frustrated, and maybe again we go to a different teacher, maybe we go to a different temple, maybe we go to a different religion, You know, maybe we become a spiritual consumer, like Trungpa Rinpoche talked about, spiritual materialism. You know, we kind of go from window to window, different religions, different displays, and, you know, taste a little of that and buy a little trinket of this, and, you know, put a little mala here and a little cross there. But we never find it. We just continue to shop and to buy things and to be lured into charisma. But yet we never realize what we are seeking. We never get it. You know, is there something that you know, has not been taught to the people? Yes, there is. But are these things it? No. No. There's a movie called Annihilation, and it's one of my favorite movies. It came from a book actually called The Color of Space, and it's kind of a sci-fi horror movie. I love horror movies and I love sci-fi, so it was a great movie for me. And in it, there was kind of this unexplainable essence that came to Earth that changed things. And it had no real attributes. It couldn't be explained. They called it, in the movie, they called it the shimmer. In the book, they called it, you know, the color. It was like this crimson color. Because they couldn't define it with words. It was indefinable. It was inexpressible. It had no, again, attributes to hold on to, but yet it was there. It could be felt. You could see in the movie, you could see it transforming things all around you. Yet you couldn't quite get your, you know, mind around it. It was just inexpressible, unattainable, beyond our ability to use markers for it, you know. So all we could do is, you know, in the movie, all they could do was call it the shimmer, but they knew nothing else about it, and no matter how hard they tried to study it, they couldn't get their hands on it. They couldn't understand it logically. But it was there, and it was transforming everything around them, and they felt it, and they knew they were part of it, and towards the end of the movie, you know, they were nothing other than it. They weren't separate anymore. And I think it's very interesting because in the book, you know, they just say a color. Because not even a word could express it in the book, what was trying to be conveyed, that it was just something beyond our ability or scope to understand or conceptualize. You know, so they used a color as a marker for it. You know, many times we use art, right? Is art it? Nope. But we get a little closer with art because art goes past many times the conceptual mind, goes past words and logic, and it's something that we experience directly. It's something we experience with every cell in our body. Some arts just scream out and we feel it, you know, just like these koans after we, you know, like sitting and observing a painting and the nuances of the painting when we sit with this beautiful poetry of koans, and that's, for me, it very much is a poetry. We see it pointing more and more and more until it becomes an experience, and then we really connect with it. Right? So koans, we say it's like Dharma battle and you know, the Mondo dialogue, but for me it's poetry. It's beautiful. You know, it's that which cannot be described or obtained by grasping. A gateway, a window to it, but still not it. Still not it. Even though we can't use words to describe it, it's still very important to be able to use words. For newer students, using words is very important. because there is not the experience there that's necessary to understand a lot of the markers. So we have to explain a little bit more. So there's kind of a balance of explaining things, but not over-explaining things, or not getting into the realm of teaching, but pointing as much as possible without kind of leaving a footprint or teaching the person something. Because we can teach, but again, that's a very dangerous path unless it has something to do with ritual or the container of Zen. But we should not be teaching Zen. We should not be teaching these koans. We should be pointing and using our experiences just to give a general direction. Because what a great disservice it is to somebody to teach them something, because you're cheating them. You're giving them something that's not theirs, that's yours, it's your understanding. You're selling them short. And if we as students take them, then we too are selling ourselves short. We're settling for less, because there is much, much, much more than just koans, than just markers, than just eloquent words and eloquent icons. There is much, much more. So sometimes we have to take from another koan, we have to shed our eyebrows. There's old, saying that basically if you spoke too much or if you taught, that your eyebrows would fall off. So as we know, we get older and we get more hair and more places on our face. One of those is our eyebrows become very bushy. So it's kind of a symbol of wisdom in Asian culture, and probably even Western culture to some degree. But it says if we talk too much, that our eyebrows will fall out. So we still have to, though. We still have to be willing to shed our eyebrows from time to time for other people, to give them some kind of temporary scaffolding that they can use until they're able to deconstruct it and to construct it via their own experience and their own insight. So it's not that words are bad. That's not what this koan is saying. It's saying that we need to understand that words are nothing more than markers and not to get attached to them, and that they cannot, no matter how eloquent, explain that first principle of Zen. They cannot do it, right? So we have to step off that flagpole. We have to take that step, We have to come down. We have to be able to communicate and to give new students and other students some basic insight or direction. So Yakujo says, well, you have preached. And Nansen says, well, I am like that. Right? And I had a laugh when I read this originally, because I definitely too am like this. He was kind of talking about, again, about being compassionate and strong enough and willing to shed your eyebrows for other people. But for me, I took this away of, you know what, you're kind of a lot like that, use words a little too much. And I think it's just, person to person and our personalities. Some people tend to be more reserved and quiet, and others are more outgoing and talkative. And I just happen to be one of those talkative Zen teachers. But when the bell rings, it changes. But, I don't mind using language, and I love interacting with people, and this is the way that we communicate. But it's not it. But we still have to be willing as Zen teachers and even Zen students, when given an opportunity to help somebody, to use words. We say in our precepts not to be greedy with the Dharma assets. Well, this is what it's pointing to, to be able to willingly shed our eyebrows for other people, to to offer them the markers of Zen, and the direction of Zen and the practice of Zen. This is very important. So, Nansen says, I'm just like this. So, for me, saying in a very humble way, that he cares and loves the world around him and the people that he deals with enough that he's just willing to do that. Okay? He's willing to do that. So Joe says, well, I am not a man of great wisdom, so how do I tell if there is preaching or no preaching? Right? So this is a great response, and it's a very humble response, and in this Nansen is the senior. So even that being said, this is quite beautiful too. He's humbly saying, I'm not a great man, or I'm not a man of great wisdom. How can I tell if there's preaching or not? Like, he sees what Nansen says, and he too says, I don't know either. I know we use these words, and I know that there's this first principle or this thing that can't be taught. I know it too. And it humbles me as well. How do I know if there's preaching or no preaching? What do we really know about any of this? It just cannot be defined, no matter how much we try. A very beautiful answer to Nansen. Very respectful and very open, very raw. And in this sense, you could say that this rawness and this willingness is a spiritual maturity, too. He doesn't care about winning in this mondo. He doesn't care about one-upping. This is now two fellow seekers of the way, two Dharma brothers, trying together to point to this inexpressible essence of Zen. The thing that has not been taught. They're both, as the saying goes again, like, dumb men that have had a dream. And it's such a beautiful dream, and they both know the dream. And they're both communicating in a way that's pointing to this dream. Beautiful, beautiful dream. So Nansen says, I don't follow you. And again, this is a perfect answer to his, I'm not a man of great wisdom. He says, well, I don't follow you. Well, I don't understand either. Very humble answer. Like, I don't follow you either. I don't understand either. No matter how much we're conversing here, it still always falls short. I don't follow you. So Hyakujo says, he says, well, I have talked quite enough for you. What else can be said? Nothing. No matter how much or how long the dialogue goes, it just becomes more diluted. And even though Hyakujo at this point in time is younger and he's, a lot of vigor and a lot of, testing and pushing senior monks, they call it Dharma battle, as I said before. Not here. Not here. I have talked quite enough for you. There's nothing left to be said. Which is quite beautiful and really points to the essence of the koan. There's nothing more that can be said. There's nothing that can be said. But we know it's there. We feel it. There's no doubt at all. So if we look at Secho's verse here, it says, patriarchs and Buddhas have not preached, right? Because again, preaching is a disservice. There is no preaching. There's just pointing, and Dharma talks are not preaching at all, but just experiences of the teacher in attempt to try to maybe reframe or to flesh out a little more that which cannot be explained, that which is ungraspable. So it has not been preached. The patriarchs and the Buddhas have not preached it. Nothing they've said. The historic Buddha, and we talked about, all of the sutras, the thousands of sutras, and none of that. They have not preached it. They have not, explained it. So he's saying that, yet monks run after preachers, and this is what I had said before. It's not a bad thing for a teacher to be charismatic. It's a good thing, especially if they're a good teacher. I think my teacher is very charismatic, and I like him, and I kind of vibe with him, and he is a little outgoing, and likes to laugh like I do, and very humorous. So it was a good fit. And again, going to find, we always say your teacher is important, but it's also important to realize that the person sitting right in front of you that you don't think, is a good teacher for you may be a great teacher for you. Just settle in for a little while and digest what's being said versus rushing off to another teacher. So, goes on to say, clear mirror on the stand, sharply imaging, right? Clear mirror on the stand, sharply imaging, right? So everything is being reflected as it is, clear mirror. It's all around us. It's being reflected perfectly. The mirror is on the stand, and it is perfectly reflecting. Perfectly. Looking southward, the Great Bear. So this is talking about the Big Dipper. So no matter where you look, there it is. That which has not been preached, there it is. Bodhidharma and his beard has not been preached. None of this has been preached. It cannot be. All these things that surround me, we can use markers for them, but they cannot be preached. The essence cannot be preached, cannot be grasped at. But yet I am nothing other than it. I am not separate from it. I am not swimming in it. I am it. So that maybe gives you a little idea in the direction that you need to look versus running after Buddhas and teachers. So he goes on to also say the shaft hangs down, which is the dipper, right? So where do you find it? Right? The shaft hangs down. Mirror on the stand, reflecting perfectly. Where do you find it? Where do you find that which cannot be taught? Saving your nostrils, you have lost your mouth. So this is like saying, don't cut your nose off to spite your face. So words and the tradition and the sutras are very important. Being able to communicate with other people is very important. Being able to love and say I love you, or I care for you, or to truly hug somebody is very important. Right? So don't think that we have to disregard words and Buddhas and things. Sometimes we need to use them as conduits. But this dialogue between Nansen and Hyakujo is just warning us about the limitations. So this is a wonderful koan, and I invite all of you to explore it and to try to experience what is being said in this beautiful poetry. So this is an actual dialogue that happened between Hyakujo and Nansen, and it was pure poetry. I see the Mumonkan and the Blue Cliff and the Rinzai Roku as books of poetry, of art, that points, but is never it, but points. And working on a koan is like standing in front of a painting and absorbing it and feeling it and connecting to it, where there is no you in painting, but just the experience. So the koan and the painting are nothing more than gates. Gates to it, gates to that cannot be taught. So with that being said, I think I will end the use of words, and it's now time for Zazen, to actually feel that which cannot be taught.